to find an x-intercept on a graph, where is it located? Gage? Yeah, man, you must have had a good Algebra 2 teacher. Made you remember that. Yeah. So to find the x-intercept, that's somewhere on the x-axis. If I were to pick a random point on that x-axis, it would be whatever that x value is, comma 0. So the x-intercept is always the x value, comma 0. So to find the x-intercept, we plug in 0 for the y in the equation. And then once we solve for x, we have our x-intercept. So how about to find the y-intercept? You plug in 0 for x. So the y-intercept would be 0, comma y. You plug in 0 for x. So if we were using y equals mx plus b, how does that work with finding the y-intercept? Because you guys are just like, well, it's b. I didn't have to plug in 0. Right? How does that work with y equals mx plus b? If I plug in 0 for x, what do I get? I get b. I get b for my y-intercept. So this is what you were doing with y equals mx plus b. It's just somebody taught you this gimmick and that's what you remembered. You didn't really understand the math. So we have to understand the math because unfortunately we're doing more than lines this year. I mean, you did more than lines last year too. Alright, to find the slope, this I taught you yesterday. I hope you used it and remember a little bit. To find the slope when it is in standard form, what do we do? Negative a over b. If you don't remember that, we're going to keep writing it over and over again so you can remember it. Example 1, we're going to graph. You guys have straight edges. I've passed them out already. We're going to graph 3x plus 2y equals negative 12. So you could change this equation into a different form, but today we are not. Today we're going to use find the x and y intercepts and the slopes. So I'm going to find my slope first. That's easy. Negative a over b. Negative 3 over 2, reduce it, already reduced, done. I know my slope. And then when I find my x and y intercepts, I like to make a chart. I like to stay organized. Keep in mind that when your teacher grades your papers, your teacher has to understand what you mean. So organization is very helpful for me. Thanks. X-intercept. We're going to plug in 0 for y. So if I plug in 0 for y, I get 3x plus 2 times 0 equals negative 12. That gives me 3x equals negative 12 because y just goes away at that point. So x has to be negative 4. That is not the intercept. To write the intercept, you write negative 4, 0. Intercepts are ordered pairs. To find the y-intercept, we plug in 0 for x. So 3 times 0 plus 2y equals negative 12. So 2y is negative 12. So y is negative 6. Ordered pair 0, negative 6. And we're finding all 3 pieces of information because sometimes you can use all 3 pieces of information to graph it. Sometimes you may only want to use 2 pieces of the information, and you'll see that as we do examples and when you work on your assignment what I'm talking about. So from here, you need at least 1 point and a slope, or at least 2 points. So we could graph both points, negative 4, 0, and 0, negative 6. And you could use your straight edge if you're really that good and make your line. If you don't feel comfortable at this point, like I'm not sure if I'm really finding it right, that's where I'm going to pull out the slope and be like, all right, negative 3 over 2. Negative 3 over 2. Oh, good. They're on the same line. Negative 3 over 2, I can even find more points if I want to line up my straight edge and make it more accurate. Then you draw your line. You have arrows at the ends of your line because it's a line, it goes on forever. And we move to the next question. You dropped this like 2 days ago. All right. Question B. 4x minus y equals 2. Find the slope. Negative a over b. Negative 4 over negative 1. Just 4. We'll find my x and my y intercept. X-intercept, get rid of y. And I get x is a half. So we write 1/2 0 for our x-intercept. Y-intercept. 4x. Oops, nope. For y-intercept, we make x 0. So 4 times 0 minus y equals 2. Negative y is 2. So y is negative 2. So here's where I might want to use different information. Maybe for this one, I'm going to graph 0, negative 2, and from this point, use my slope. Up 4 over 1. Up 4 over 1. Up 4 over 1. Or down 4, left 1, down 4, left 1. I probably still want to look at that x-intercept and make sure that it is on this line, even though I didn't graph it to find the line. Let's see, a half. Oh yeah, that makes sense. That looks right. So we're going on there, just making sure. When you're ready to go on, I want you to try to find the slope, the x and y intercepts by yourself, and then I'll catch up and go over it. I know I worked slower than you guys have been talking the whole time. So I use my slope from this point down from here, and up 4 over 1 rather than trying to worry about that front edge. And then 6 and going up 4 over 1 is going to be easier than trying to set that down. Okay, for C, the slope, negative a over b, is negative 6 over 4, which reduces to negative 3 over 2, and yes, you should reduce. And we're going to do our x and y intercepts. X plus 4 times 0 equals 10. Okay, so I got negative 3/2 for slope. For my x-intercept, I got 5/3 0. And for my y-intercept, I got 0 5/2. Did I make a mistake? Or did you guys get the same as me? I make mistakes once in a while. When I go to graph this, I'm just like, oh, fractions all over the place. When I look at my two fractions here, which one's easier to graph? 5/2, that's what, 2.5? So that's on the y-axis, 2.5. I can graph, this is like 1 2/3. I can approximate it, 1 2/3. I'm not going to be that accurate. Because I'm really not that accurate with the x-intercept, I'm going to use just the y-intercept and my slope. Just know that if you're going to use your slope from a half, then you're going down 3 full blocks. So I'm going down 3 full blocks, I'm going to end up at a half. Over 2 full blocks, I'm going to end up at a half. 3 down, 2 over. Or we could go up and then back. So I gave you some in homework that are not going to be nice numbers ever, and you're just going to have to like graph off of fractions, because we're in pre-calc now. We can do it. I have confidence in you. Go team. All right, last one. Did you guys start it yet? You started on your own. Go ahead. If you haven't started it, start it. So when you go to find your x-intercept for this one, you get negative 30, 0, and your y-intercept, you get 45, so 0, 45. And then we look at our graph and we say, all right, I want to fit it on here, but currently the graph is not big enough. So you guys are going to do what to the graph? Count by different numbers. Change your scale. I'm actually going to count by 5s, but you can count by 10. Like, there's not a right way of changing the scale, okay? But you do need to tell the person reading your graph that you change the scale. Now, I am a little bit picky about this, okay? When I'm grading your test and I've got, so many tests to get through and I'm trying to save as much time, I'm not looking over here in the corner for a note with an asterisk that says, I changed my scale. Like, I'm looking at your graph. So the numbers need to be on the graph. You do not have to label every single number on the graph. That's ridiculous. Just label some so I can see what you're counting by. So I'm going to count by 5. So I'm going to say this is 5, this is 10. I'm also going to change my x-axis. This is 5, this is 10. That's good enough for me. Okay? Now I know exactly what you're counting by, because when we use coordinate planes, they should all be evenly spaced. So if I see that you're starting with 5, 10, I know it's all by 5. Please don't write messages out in the corners to me, because I will miss them, and then I'll hand you your papers back, and you'll be like, oh, it said it over here, and I'll be like, oh, I missed that. Okay, so once I have that scale set up, now I can go ahead and graph my negative 30 and my 45 on the y. And I could use my straight edge to connect those. Those are pretty easy to connect. But I also want to show you that if you change your scale on both the x and the y for the same amount, the slope still works. Because the slope is it's a ratio. It's not saying 3 inches, 2 inches. It's saying 3 by 2, like 3 anything by 2 anything. So I'm going up 3 5s over 2 5s. Up 3 5s over 2 5s. Up 3 5s over 2 5s, because I'm counting by 5. So it still works if you want more points in there. As long as you change both the x and the y, it still works. If you only change one of them, the slope does not work. Alright, so that's, a lot of your homework is going to look like that. We're going to have part of our homework, and I think actually this might be more of the hardest part. It's not hard, but this might be the hardest part of the homework, is we're going to find the standard form for each situation here. So review from yesterday, standard form, ax plus by equals c. What do we know the rules are for it when it's in standard form? Okay, no fractions, no decimals. And a cannot be negative. No fractions, no decimals. A cannot be negative. You don't have to rewrite that down if you know that or if it's in your notes. I just wanted to review that. And I like writing what I say just in case somebody's more visual than hearing. So here I've given you the slope-intercept form of this line is y equals 2/3 x minus 4. We have to put into standard form. And I'm looking for your names. I'll call on some of you. Okay, there. I know some of you guys. Still learning though. There we go. What should we do first? Any volunteers? Harry? Not by 2/3. I also don't want to multiply by 3/2. Because if I multiply this side by 3/2, what am I going to get on that side? I'm going to get a fraction again. So you're in the right train of thought, right there. Kurt? Yeah, we just want to multiply by the denominator, by 3. 3/1. So that way now we don't have fractions. 3y equals 2x minus 12. Okay. From here, Jacob, what should we do now? Okay, subtract the 2x. And now we have it in standard form, right, Michaela? Standard form?
Wait, I can't do that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I did not know it was up there. Or, if I don't like divided by negative, I could also multiply by negative. Or, you could have, instead of taking the 2x over, you could have subtracted the 3y over and moved the 12, and then it would be done as well. Any of those works. So, get rid of those negatives. I'm going to multiply by -1. That's my preference. But that doesn't mean you don't. That doesn't mean you have to. That's just my preference, my personal, how I like to do it. Okay. And now we have it in standard form. That one was not too bad. B, we have a horizontal line that passes through the point -7, 10. So that was kind of like that last question on the assignment yesterday where a lot of us had to go look at that. So here I'm asking you to do it again. Did we learn from yesterday? Should we go over it? Horizontal line that passes through the point -7, 10. Where would be a good place to start? Point slope formula. Okay, so I have a point, but I don't have a slope. So in order to do point slope formula, which is a great thing to try, I need a slope. Do I have a slope? I don't have a slope. Do I? Do I, Kennedy? Okay, so I might have that knowledge that a horizontal line has a slope of 0. So if I have that knowledge, then yes, I have a slope, and now I can do point slope formula. However, that's longer. That's a longer way, but I'll do it. I'll do that, because some of you did that for your homework. So if we do point slope formula, just to remind you, point slope formula is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So I'd go y minus 10 equals 0 times x plus 7. Get y minus 10 equals 0. Is this standard form? Is this ax plus by equals c? Here. Move the 10 over. So we'll add the 10 and we get y equals 10. So this is standard form. If I put the 0x in, it would look like 0x plus y equals 10. But I don't think you need the 0x. I think you could just put y equals 10 and be fine. So I said that was the longer way. If you know it's horizontal and it passes through -7, 10, so -7, 10 is somewhere over here, I don't know. It has to be y equals. Has to be y equals, so that would be y equals 10. We will finish after lunch.